I never believed the FBI would actually find one, until I saw the classified photos they tried to bury. What started as a routine missing persons case in the Denver mountains turned into something that made hardened federal agents refuse to go back into that cave. But here's what keeps me up at night. If they've been living this close to civilization all along, what else have they been doing that we haven't found yet? I was sitting in my Denver office when the call came through. It was a Tuesday morning in March, and snow was falling outside my window. The voice on the phone belonged to Agent Sarah Martinez from the FBI field office downtown. She said they needed someone who knew the mountains, someone who had studied wildlife and strange animal cases. My coffee went cold as I listened to what she had to say next. She told me they found something in the mountains west of Denver, something that did not make sense. A hiker had called 911 3 days before. The hiker was scared and out of breath. He said he found a cave that smelled like death. Inside the cave, he saw bones. Human bones. But that was not the strangest part. The hiker also saw prints in the mud near the cave entrance. Prints that were 18 inches long and 7 inches wide. Prints that looked almost human, but not quite right. I grabbed my coat and drove to meet Agent Martinez at a coffee shop near the federal building. She was waiting in a back corner booth. Her face looked tired. She had dark circles under her eyes like she had not slept in days. When I sat down, she slid a folder across the table to me. Inside were photos. The first photo showed the cave entrance. It was hidden behind thick pine trees and large rocks. You could walk right past it and never see it. The second photo made my hands shake. It showed the inside of the cave. The walls were covered in scratch marks. Deep grooves ran from the floor to the ceiling. Something with incredible strength had made those marks. In the middle of the cave floor was a pile of branches and leaves. It looked like a nest. A very large nest. Around the nest were bones. I could see a human skull. I could see ribs and leg bones. Some of the bones looked fresh. Agent Martinez leaned forward and spoke quietly. She said the local police went to check out the cave after the hiker called. 2 officers went inside with flashlights. They came out 5 minutes later. Both officers were pale and shaking. One officer threw up in the bushes. They called the FBI right away. The FBI sent a team up the mountain the next morning. What they found made them call me. I asked her what else they found. She pulled out another photo. This one showed a footprint cast. The cast was made from plaster and showed every detail. The foot had 5 toes like a human foot, but the toes were longer and thicker. The arch was deeper, the heel was wider. This was not a bear print. It was not a human print either. It was something in between. Then she showed me the hair samples. Thick, dark hair that the team found stuck to the cave walls and caught on branches near the entrance. The hair was coarse and reddish-brown. Each strand was thicker than human hair. The FBI lab ran tests on the hair. The DNA came back strange. It showed markers that were mostly human, but there were differences. Small differences that the lab could not explain. The lab technician wrote in his report that the sample was contaminated or came from an unknown primate species. Agent Martinez said there was more. Near the cave, the team found evidence of a camp. Old fire pits with burned animal bones. Piles of pine needles arranged in circles. Rocks stacked in strange patterns. Someone or something had been living in that area for a long time. The team found more footprints leading away from the cave. The prints went deeper into the wilderness. The team followed the trail for 2 miles before it disappeared into a rocky area where tracks could not form. I asked about the human remains. Agent Martinez's voice got even quieter. She said they found bones from at least 3 different people. The bones showed teeth marks. Large teeth marks. Something had bitten into the bones with powerful jaws. The bones also showed signs of being broken open, like something was trying to get to the marrow inside. One skull had a huge crack in it, the kind of crack that comes from massive blunt force trauma. The FBI checked missing persons reports for the Denver area. They found matches for 2 of the victims. One was a hiker who vanished 2 years ago. Another was a camper who disappeared last fall. Both were reported missing in the same general area as the cave. Search teams had looked for them but found nothing. Now they knew why. The searches never went far enough up the mountain. They never found the hidden cave. Agent Martinez told me the FBI wanted to go back to the cave. They wanted a bigger team. They wanted to search the area more carefully. They wanted to find out what made those prints and what lived in that cave, but they needed someone who understood animal behavior, someone who could tell them if this was a bear or a mountain lion or something else. That was why they called me. I looked at the photos again. My mind was racing. I had spent 15 years studying wildlife in Colorado. I'd seen bear dens and mountain lion kills. I'd tracked elk and studied wolf packs, but I had never seen anything like this. The prints were too big for any known animal. The nest was too organized. The scratch marks showed purpose and intelligence, and the way the bones were arranged around the nest looked almost deliberate, like trophies. Agent Martinez asked if I would help them. She said they were going back to the cave in 2 days. They would have a full forensic team. They would have security. They would have everything we needed to document what was up there. She looked me in the eyes and asked if I was willing to see this through, to find out what was really living in those mountains so close to the city. I said yes. I did not know then that this decision would change everything I thought I knew about the world. I did not know that what we would find would be so much stranger than anyone expected. And I definitely did not know that some of us would not want to go back. We left Denver before sunrise on Thursday morning. Our convoy had 3 black SUVs filled with FBI agents, forensic specialists, and equipment. I rode in the second vehicle with Agent Martinez and Dr. Chen, the lead forensic scientist. The drive took 2 hours on winding mountain roads. Nobody talked much. Everyone seemed nervous about what we might find. The cave was in a remote area called Black Rock Ridge. We parked at the end of a dirt logging road and hiked the last mile on foot. The forest was thick with pine trees and aspens. Fresh snow covered the ground from the night before. Our boots crunched loudly with each step. Birds were singing in the trees, but as we got closer to the cave, the forest went silent. No birds, no squirrels, nothing. Just our breathing and footsteps. Agent Rodriguez, the team leader, stopped us 50 yards from the cave entrance. He sent 2 agents ahead to check the area. They came back 10 minutes later and gave the all-clear sign. We moved forward slowly. The smell hit us before we saw the cave. It was a thick, awful smell, like rotting meat mixed with wet dog and something else I could not name. Something wild and musky. Dr. Chen put a mask over her face. Several agents did the same. The cave entrance was exactly like the photos showed, dark and hidden behind rocks and trees. But standing there in person felt different. The opening was 7 feet tall and about 5 feet wide. Scratch marks covered the rock walls around the entrance. I ran my hand over the grooves. They were deep, at least half an inch into solid rock. Whatever made these marks had claws like steel and strength beyond anything I had studied. We set up lights at the cave entrance, bright LED panels that lit up the darkness inside. Dr. Chen and her team went in first with cameras and evidence bags. I followed with Agent Martinez. The cave went back about 40 feet and then opened into a larger chamber. The chamber was roughly circular, maybe 20 feet across. The ceiling was 12 feet high, and in the center was the nest. Up close, the nest was even more disturbing. It was built from pine branches, each one carefully broken to the same length of about 3 feet. The branches were woven together in a spiral pattern. Dried leaves and moss filled the gaps. The whole structure was 6 feet wide and raised about 2 feet off the cave floor. This was not random. This showed planning and skill. Bears do not build nests like this. No animal I knew built nests like this. Dr. Chen started photographing the bones around the nest. She worked slowly and carefully, documenting each piece. I counted parts from at least 4 different skeletons, not 3 like the first report said. The bones were scattered in a rough circle around the nest like the remains of meals. Many bones showed teeth marks. I picked up a femur bone to examine it closer. The bite marks were huge. The teeth had punctured completely through the bone in some places. Agent Martinez was searching the back of the cave with her flashlight. She called out that she found something. We moved to where she stood. On the cave wall were marks that looked almost like writing. Not letters or symbols we could read, just lines and scratches arranged in patterns. Groups of 3 lines, groups of 5 lines. They looked intentional, like someone was counting or keeping track of something. Below the marks were more bones, older ones that had turned brown with age. Then Dr. Chen made the discovery that changed everything. She was digging through the nest material when she pulled out a piece of fabric. It was a torn jacket sleeve, bright blue with reflective strips. The kind hikers wear. The fabric was fresh, maybe a few months old, but that was not what made everyone go quiet. Wrapped inside the fabric was a small leather wallet. Dr. Chen opened it carefully. Inside was a driver's license. The photo showed a young woman with red hair and a big smile. Her name was Rebecca Walsh, age 24, from Boulder, Colorado. Agent Rodriguez immediately got on his radio. He called back to the office to check on Rebecca Walsh. The response came back 5 minutes later. Rebecca Walsh was reported missing 6 weeks ago. She went hiking alone near Black Rock Ridge on a Saturday morning. She never came home. Search teams looked for her for 2 weeks. They found her car at a trailhead 3 miles from where we stood. They never found her. Now we knew what happened to her, and we knew it happened recently. Very recently. Whatever lived in this cave was still active, still hunting. The thought made my skin crawl. I looked around the cave with new fear. The thing that did this could be close by. It could be watching us right now. Dr. Chen continued working through the evidence. She found more hair samples stuck to the cave walls. She found what looked like a crude tool made from a sharpened rock tied to a stick with plant fibers. She found partially eaten animal carcasses, including a deer that could not have been dead for more than a week. The meat was still pink in places. She found scat that was enormous, bigger than bear scat, filled with hair and bone fragments. But the most troubling find came from Agent Kim, who was examining the cave floor near the entrance. She found fresh footprints in the soft dirt. The same massive prints from the photos. But these prints were new. The edges were sharp and clean. No rain or wind had worn them down yet. Agent Kim measured them carefully. 18.5 inches long, 7 inches wide at the ball of the foot. The prints led from inside the cave to outside. They were made within the last day or 2. Agent Rodriguez made a decision. He said we needed to leave. We needed to take what evidence we had and get back down the mountain. Whatever made this cave its home might return soon. We did not want to be here when it did. But as we started packing up our equipment, we heard something that made everyone freeze. From somewhere deeper in the forest came a sound. It was long and loud and unlike anything I had ever heard. Not a bear growl, not a wolf howl, something in between. Something that sounded almost human, but wrong. The sound echoed through the trees and seemed to come from everywhere at once. We ran. We made it back to the vehicles without stopping. My lungs burned from running at high altitude. My hands shook as I climbed into the SUV. Agent Martinez was breathing hard beside me. Her face was white. Nobody spoke during the drive down the mountain. We all kept looking back through the rear windows, watching the tree line, watching for something to follow us. Back at the FBI office in Denver, they put me in a small conference room. They brought me water and told me to wait. Through the window, I could see agents running back and forth. Phones were ringing. People were shouting. Something big was happening. After an hour, Agent Martinez came in and sat across from me. She looked even more tired than before. She told me that the sound we heard in the forest was recorded by one of the agent's body cameras. The tech team analyzed it. The sound had frequencies that human vocal cords cannot make, but it also had frequencies that only primates can produce. The recording was being sent to wildlife experts across the country. Then she told me something that made my stomach drop. 2 more hikers were reported missing that morning. A couple in their 30s who went camping near Black Rock Ridge 3 days ago. They were supposed to check in with family yesterday. They never did. Their car was found at the same trailhead where Rebecca Walsh's car was found. The Park Service was organizing a search party for the next morning. The FBI was trying to decide if they should tell the searchers what we found in the cave. I went home that night but could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those bones. I saw the nest. I saw those massive footprints in the dirt. I kept thinking about Rebecca Walsh's smile in her driver's license photo. I kept thinking about the couple who might be up there right now. I got out of bed at 3 in the morning and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. I started researching. I read every Bigfoot report ever filed in Colorado. I read native legends about wild men in the mountains. I read scientific papers about undiscovered primate species. The next day, Agent Martinez called me early. She said they needed me to come back to the office. When I arrived, the conference room was full of people I had never seen before. Federal agents in suits, scientists with thick folders, a woman from the Park Service. Agent Rodriguez stood at the front of the room with a projector. He said they had news. The DNA results from the hair samples came back from 3 different labs. All 3 labs found the same thing. The DNA was 97% human. The other 3% matched no known species on Earth. One lab director wrote in her report that the sample was impossible, that it should not exist, that either the sample was contaminated or they had discovered something that would rewrite biology textbooks. But there was more. The FBI checked satellite images of Black Rock Ridge going back 5 years. They found something strange. In winter, images when there was no snow, they could see a pattern in the forest. Large areas where trees were bent or broken in circles. Areas where the ground looked disturbed. At least 7 different sites within a 5-mile radius of the cave. They sent a drone up yesterday afternoon to take fresh photos. The drone captured thermal images. The images showed heat signatures near 3 of the sites. Large heat signatures, much bigger than a human or bear. The signatures moved on 2 legs. A scientist named Dr. Reeves stood up to speak. He was tall and thin with gray hair. He said he had studied primates for 30 years. He said that what we found suggested an intelligent creature. The nest building showed advanced cognitive ability. The tool making showed problem-solving skills. The way the bones were arranged showed possible ritual behavior. He said that if this creature existed, it was likely more intelligent than gorillas. Maybe as intelligent as early human ancestors. He said we needed to approach this very carefully. This was not just some animal. This was something that could think and plan. Then the woman from the Park Service spoke. Her name was Director Hayes. She said they were closing Black Rock Ridge to all visitors immediately. They were putting up signs and barriers on all the trails. But she was worried. The area was huge. Hundreds of square miles of wilderness. They could not watch it all. People could still sneak in, and there were still 2 missing hikers up there somewhere. She wanted to send in a search and rescue team that afternoon. Agent Rodriguez said no. Too dangerous. They needed to send in a tactical team first. Armed agents who could protect themselves if they found what lived in that cave. I raised my hand and spoke for the first time. I said that if this creature was as intelligent as Dr. Reeves believed, then going in with guns might be the worst thing we could do. It might see us as a threat. It might attack, or it might run away and we would never find it. I said we needed to think this through. We needed a plan that would keep people safe but also help us understand what this thing was. Agent Martinez looked at me and asked what I suggested. I told her I did not know. I told her I was a wildlife researcher, not a tactical expert. But I knew that every decision we made from this point forward would have huge consequences. If we went public with this information, there would be panic. If we stayed quiet, more people might die. If we tried to hunt this creature, we might be making a terrible mistake. We were standing at a crossroads and every path looked dangerous. That night I had nightmares. I dreamed I was back in the cave. The nest was moving. Something was breathing inside it. I tried to run, but my legs would not work. I woke up sweating and shaking. I looked at my phone. It was 4 a.m. I had 7 missed calls from Agent Martinez. I called her back immediately. Her voice was shaking when she answered. She said the tactical team went into Black Rock Ridge at midnight. They found the missing couple, what was left of them, and they found something else. Fresh footprints leading toward Denver, leading toward the city, leading toward people. I rushed to the FBI office before dawn. The building was lit up like a stadium. Police cars and federal vehicles filled the parking lot. Inside, the main conference room looked like a war room. Maps covered the walls. Red pins marked locations across the Denver metro area. Agent Rodriguez stood at the center, coordinating teams on multiple phone lines at once. He looked like he had aged 10 years overnight. Agent Martinez pulled me aside and showed me the map. The tactical team had followed the footprints from Black Rock Ridge down into the foothills. The tracks moved through residential areas on the western edge of Denver, through neighborhoods where families were sleeping. The creature had walked along Deer Creek, using the water to hide its path. But it made mistakes. It left prints in mud near a park. It knocked over garbage cans behind a shopping center. It broke a fence getting into someone's backyard. The trail led to an abandoned industrial area near the old railroad yards. That was where the tracks disappeared into a concrete drainage tunnel. The team was setting up a perimeter now. But that was not the worst part. Agent Martinez pulled up security camera footage on her laptop. The video was from a gas station 3 miles from the drainage tunnel. The timestamp showed 2 hours ago. At first, I saw nothing unusual, just an empty parking lot in the dark. Then something moved at the edge of the frame. A massive shape, walking upright like a human, but much taller. At least 8 feet tall, maybe more. It moved behind the building and out of camera view. The gas station attendant never saw it. The creature was avoiding people, staying in the shadows, moving carefully. This was not random animal behavior. This was intelligence. This was stalking. Dr. Reeves arrived with more scientists from the university. They set up computers and started analyzing everything we knew. Dr. Reeves said his team had been reviewing historical records. They found something disturbing. Over the past 20 years, there had been 73 missing person cases in the Colorado mountains that were never solved. 73 people who vanished without a trace. Most were solo hikers. Most disappeared in remote areas. Most were never found. The cases were spread across different counties, different years. Nobody had ever connected them before. But now, looking at them together on a map, they formed a pattern. A wide circle around the Black Rock Ridge area. A younger scientist named Dr. Park stood up and added more information. She said she studied the native legends of the Ute and Arapaho tribes who lived in Colorado for thousands of years. The tribes had stories about the Stick Indians or the Wood Giants, tall creatures that lived in the deepest forests, creatures that were almost human but not quite. The tribes said these beings were dangerous. They said the beings were smart and strong. They said you should never go into the mountains alone. Dr. Park said that for years, scientists dismissed these stories as myths. But what if the stories were warnings? What if the tribes knew these creatures existed all along? Director Hayes from the Park Service was on a video call with the governor's office. I could hear her through the conference room door. She was explaining that they needed to evacuate parts of West Denver, at least temporarily, until they found and dealt with whatever was in that drainage tunnel. But the governor was pushing back. He said they could not evacuate thousands of people without proof. He said it would cause panic. He said the media would find out and then everything would explode. Director Hayes was shouting now. She said people's lives were at risk. She said they already had 6 confirmed deaths and 2 missing hikers. How many more people needed to die before they took this seriously? Agent Rodriguez ended his phone calls and gathered everyone in the room. He said they were going into the drainage tunnel in 1 hour. They had thermal imaging equipment. They had night vision. They had a full tactical team. They were going to find this creature and determine if it was dangerous, and if it was dangerous, they were authorized to neutralize it. Dr. Reeves objected strongly. He said we could not just kill what might be the most important biological discovery in human history. Agent Rodriguez said his job was to protect people, not preserve unknown species. The 2 men argued for 10 minutes until Agent Martinez stepped between them. She said they needed to think bigger than just one creature. If this thing existed, there were probably others. The den we found was not the only one. The thermal satellite images showed multiple sites. The missing persons cases went back 20 years. This was not one animal. This was a population. Maybe a small population, but a breeding group. If they killed one, the others might respond. They might attack. They might flee deeper into the wilderness where we would never find them. Or they might come into the city looking for revenge. We had no idea how these creatures thought or communicated. We were dealing with an unknown intelligence. I spoke up again. I said that everything we were seeing suggested these creatures had lived near humans for a very long time. Maybe hundreds of years. Maybe thousands. They had stayed hidden. They had avoided contact. Yes, they hunted people sometimes. But mostly they stayed away from us. Something had changed. Maybe we were building too close to their territory. Maybe climate change was affecting their food sources. Maybe their population was growing and they needed more space. Whatever the reason, they were getting bolder, coming closer to civilization. And that meant we were at a turning point. How we handled this next step would determine everything. Would we try to coexist? Would we try to eliminate them? Would we try to study them? Each choice had massive consequences. The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at each other. Agent Rodriguez sat down heavily in a chair. He rubbed his face with both hands. He said they needed to brief the president. This was beyond local FBI authority now. This was a national security issue. If these creatures existed in Colorado, they probably existed in other states too, other countries. How many were out there? Where were they? What did they want? The questions kept piling up with no answers. Director Hayes ended her call with the governor. She said he was giving them 24 hours. 24 hours to gather proof and make a plan. After that, he was going to the media. He was going to tell the public everything. Agent Martinez looked at me and asked if I would go into that drainage tunnel with the team. She said they needed someone who understood animal behavior, someone who might be able to tell them how to approach this creature without starting a war. I looked at the map on the wall. I looked at the red pins marking where people had died. I thought about Rebecca Walsh's smile. I thought about the couple who would never go home. I thought about what might be waiting in the dark tunnel beneath the city. And I said yes, because someone had to face this. Someone had to try to understand. The world had just gotten much stranger and more dangerous than anyone knew, and there was no going back.